Hi, I'm Tricia Farin, real estate professional with William Ravis in Connecticut and New York, and real broker in Tennessee. You're watching Keeping the Real in Real Estate, and today we're going to be talking about change, changing seasons and changing market dynamics. The NAR settlement is complete. That happened on August 17th, and it's caused things to change. Now, I don't particularly think that change is a bad thing, but change could be uncomfortable for many. So I'm going to break it down about what actually has changed and how so far that's been impacting what I've been seeing in the field. So going to the NAR settlement, there's three things that I think are very important for you to understand. The first is that the buyer's agent commission is no longer being listed on the MLS or any MLS related product. What does this mean? It does not mean that the seller doesn't need to allocate funds towards the buyer's agent commission. What it means is that it's just not being listed on the MLS. So in order to get this information, a buyer's agent like myself can call the listing agent and simply ask the question. Not only can they ask the question about the buyer's agent commission, but they can get other information like some expectations that perhaps the seller has, or timing about when they want to sell, or specific things about the home that may not necessarily be on the MLS listing itself, as there's limited space. So I see this as a great opportunity to develop a rapport with the listing agent and maybe get some insight into some things about the house that may benefit my client or may actually deter them from moving forward with that particular property, saving time for everybody. The second thing that's really important to understand, and this is the most important to me, is that commissions, both on the listing and buyer side, are negotiable. Now, what does that mean? It means that as a particular agent, I will come and I will present to you the services that I offer to either sell your home or to help you buy one. I'm going to come with certain expertise, credentials, education, experience, a frame of mind of how I do things. Maybe my successes, testimonials, history about my work experience, just as any other agent that you would interview. And you're going to have an opportunity to weigh the different services that we offer and the price points that we bring along with those services. Now, this is no different than any other professional that you would hire. I mean, don't you get multiple quotes to find out how much it's going to be to replace your roof, or if you wanted to get a bunch of trees planted, or if you have a leak and you need to get it fixed by a plumber? Each professional is going to come prepared to justify their fee, and you have to decide whether that justification makes sense or not. I could tell you there's times where I will get quotes and I don't necessarily go with the least expensive quote. I'm going to go with the person who made me feel like they're going to do a really good job for a fair price, whatever that means to me. As a home seller or a home buyer, you're going to have that same opportunity. There is no standard rate. There is no common fee. There is nothing like that. That has never been. It just wasn't communicated very well. So now we're making sure that everything you read, see, or discuss with respect to a commission is going to say that it is negotiable. Now, certain brokerages may have standards. So within a brokerage like William Ravis, our brand and our luxury status may command a higher rate than, let's say, the next brokerage down the street. You will need to decide whether the tools and resources and the branding that we come to the table with values that commission, just as you would with anything else. So I hope that makes that abundantly clear. The third thing is more towards the buyers. No longer are you allowed to tour a home without signing a buyer's agent agreement. Now, that doesn't include going to an open house. You are welcome to continue to go to an open house without having any obligation to any particular agent. You can tour the home and decide what you want to do. But if you wanted to see a number of homes, or even just one, privately, where it's not on a public open house, and you would like to speak to an agent in order to do that, since you can't just go into the house yourself, you will need to sign an agreement with that agent. This is where it could be a little sketchy, because it's hard to commit to somebody when you haven't really even met them and gotten a chance to know them. So as a buyer, be prepared to sit down with the agent and get to know them and understand what their services are, how much their fee is, and how they're going to help you achieve your home buying goals. You don't have to go with the first agent you meet. You can also interview multiple agents, just as a listing agent would. Now that makes it a little bit more difficult. It's going to require some planning. Some buyers may say, they may decide to go a different path and say they just want to work with the listing agent. So I want to shake my head and actually hit myself in the head to say, why would you do that? The listing agent works for the seller. They are contractually bound to have all their efforts be in the best interest of the seller. So why would you want to work with somebody who's not going to have your back? And that's typically the way that works. It's kind of like using your soon-to-be ex-spouse's attorney in the divorce. Why would you do that? You need your own representation. There's going to be things that come up, perhaps in the inspection, perhaps in negotiation. If the listing agent knows what your top and bottoms are and what the seller's tops and bottoms are, how can they possibly be completely objective, giving the best service to both with the best outcome for both? It's just not, it's not feasible. And I know people do it. I used to do it, and I've chosen not to do that anymore because I know it's really, really difficult to show allegiance to the highest amount to two opposing parties. So when you're a buyer and you say you want to work with the listing agent, think about what you're giving up in order to do that. That agent is not going to reduce their commission. They still want to get paid for the work that they do for you as a buyer's agent. So you're not saving there. You're actually just giving away information to somebody who doesn't necessarily have your best interest at heart to the most highest level the way you should. So when you're looking at talking to an agent, try and do that earlier in the week so that you're not in a hurry up situation to try and do it on the same day that you're going to look at homes. You know, an agent needs to make appointments. I mean, this is the way that I do. I make the appointments and then I do research on each particular house to find out every piece of information that I can get. So when we walk through it, I may be able to point out some things that weren't on the listing. Now, I'm not going to invest this time with somebody who's not going to want to work with me. But I also understand that unless you get to meet me, you're not going to know if I'm the right agent for you. Nor are you the right clients for me, because I'm also judging my clients or the people that I'm meeting for the first time as to whether or not I want to work with them. There have been plenty of situations where I wish I would have thought a little bit more and not work with particular people because we just didn't jive and it made it very cumbersome throughout the process. So just know that those are the three things that have come out of this NAR settlement. Now, what does that mean for fall market? This is the second biggest market of the year, and we're expecting to wheel and deal. And with change, has that put any stunted growth on this? Like, what's happening? So originally, when the NAR settlement was in talks and it changed throughout the month leading up to the actual settlement date, there was the big hype from the media that, oh, sellers don't have to pay commissions. Sellers are going to try and get some money back. There's a lot of stuff that sellers were talking about in an excitement situation. But as I'm seeing reality starting to hit, I'm still seeing some sellers saying, oh, I don't want to have to allocate anything. And they don't. They actually don't have to do that. And here's what will happen. So I have a buyer and they want to see houses A, B, and C. I call, get information. I find out that A and B have a buyer's agent allocation for commission. Buyer C, the house C doesn't. They have the right to say, I don't want to see any houses that are not showing a buyer's agent commission. So that's going to reduce the exposure to that home. It's kind of like going to a doctor that's not covered by insurance. They may really want to work with that doctor, but if the insurance company is not going to cover them, they're going to just shrug their shoulders and go someplace else. Well, that's what's happening. If buyers can't or don't want to have to now also have additional funds allocated to that, they're not going to see that house. The other thing that I tell my sellers is, if you don't do that, it's possible that the buyer is going to put the buyer's agent commission into the offer. So all we're doing is taking that same conversation and pushing it to a later date. I'm a planner and I like to have everything set up front. Know that this is what you're planning on doing. This is a fair assessment for what the market is requesting. We're pricing the house at a reasonable price so it will appraise and yet still attract an audience. We're putting the house in the best light because we want the most number of eyes looking at it who are interested and capable of purchasing that property. The more things that we do to it to put conditions, the less viewers we have. So say, for instance, you wanted to put your house on the market, but you're not going to include the light fixtures, the trees outside, the roof, the siding. If all of a sudden you started taking things off, literally off the house, people are going to look at it and say, well, I don't want that house, because not only is it the price of the house, the price of acquisition, but now I have to do all these things to it, things that I expected to already have been there. So as sellers, I try to explain that it's a matter of positioning. As everybody knows who's been listening to me, marketing is my thing. And you need to package the house to make it the most attractive to the most number of able bodies and interested people. So I think the buyer's agent commission is a component of that and should not be just dismissed. Now, on the buyer side, if you decide that you do want to keep it open to looking at all properties, know a few things. You could ask the seller to pay and allocate some money towards it, and you do that in your offer. But also, you can bundle it into your mortgage, and it's not a concession. It doesn't end up being like when they pay your closing costs. So there are some creative financing ways that could be available to you, depending on the house, depending on your financial situation. It's best to speak to your mortgage lender to find out all the options that you have. I'm a real estate agent and I cannot provide you with that information to the best of my ability. But what I can say is, just like you would speak to your attorney for all legal matters, you should also speak to the mortgage lender for anything that's going to come up with how you're going to allocate all the funds that you have towards the purchase of a house. And they'll give you what your parameters are, what your maximums are, so that when we sit down, I can look and say, okay, now I understand what your financial picture looks like, so I can take you to see the houses that I have a reasonable expectation that you'll get approved to see. I'm also seeing, just in general in this market, that there's some hesitation on the buyer side. There's a little bit of hype that the market is going to be bringing down some interest rates, and so they're kind of in a wait and see how low it's going to go kind of situation. I urge buyers to don't wait long. There's no indication at all that we're going to see a significant drop in rates. A small tick, of course, is nice, but if you're expecting a 2 or 3% drop, you're going to be waiting quite a bit of time. And if you calculate how much you have lost because you're still renting, or the quality of life that you're giving up because you're not owning your own property, you may want to think about whether or not you want to wait. Sellers, I still urge you, listen to your agents when they bring to you the proof of what the market's doing so that your homes are priced right. I am seeing a lot of houses having price drops by a lot, $40,000, $50,000 in the over $500,000 mark. Or they're sitting for a little bit longer than is expected, or what we've been accustomed to in the market in the last several months, even year. So as we look towards the fall market, what I'm looking to do for my clients is to have an understanding of what's a realistic expectation, whether that's how buyers agents commissions are being allocated, whether it's how it's pricing, whether how offers are being put together, all the components that go into it. If we set realistic expectations, we're less likely to be disappointed in the end. I'm a thorough researcher, and I make sure that when we're putting in the offer, that I know that that house was priced right, that when I'm listing a house, that I know that I can justify that price to an appraiser, because in the end, that's what I need to do. And I don't want to spend and waste my clients' time for several weeks to find out that a misjudgment on my part is going to make the deal fall apart. So keep all those points in mind. Let's see how the fall market does. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for a great market. I know that my clients are going to get their homes sold. They're going to buy homes, and we're going to move on to the next stage of life. So if you're looking to buy or sell and you want an agent that you can trust and feel confident that can navigate these new waters, I'm the girl for you. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time.